right. Beautiful morning, everyone. My name is Aneesah Smith, and I serve as the Equity and LGBTQA Advisor for the City of Richmond's Office of Equity and Inclusion. I want to first thank you all for being here today. Our community partners, advocates, residents, city leadership, elected officials, artists, organizers, and neighbors. Your presence matters. This year's theme is Pride is a Practice. And for me, personally, that theme feels especially meaningful. As someone who now gets to both work for the City of Richmond and call Richmond home, this is my very first Pride Month here in this role and as a Richmonder. That means a lot to me. Thank you. That means a lot to me, not only professionally, but personally, because Pride is about more than a celebration or symbolism. It's about how we continue showing up for each other one day after day, how we create communities where LGBTQ residents feel safe, supported, visible, and connected throughout the entire year. And if we're honest, we also know there are still divides within our communities and moments where people don't always feel seen, heard, or safe enough to fully participate as themselves. That reality calls all of us into deeper conversation, deeper partnership, and deeper care for one another. That's why collective impact matters. Relationships matter, community matters, because the truth is we can accomplish so much more together than we ever can apart. The future of belonging in Richmond cannot be built by one office, by one organization, or one voice alone. It takes all of us continuing to practice community through visibility, advocacy, accountability, compassion, and connection. So today is absolutely a celebration, but it's also an invitation to continue building a Richmond where more people feel supported, welcomed, and are able to thrive. Thank you all for being here and for continuing the work alongside of us. Happy Pride, Richmond. I have the absolute privilege of speaking among some amazing community partners and city officials. First, I would like to welcome up Mr. James Millner, our Virginia Pride Director.
Thank you, Aneesah. Oh, gosh. Thank you, Aneesah. I want to start by saying thank you to the City of Richmond, Mayor Avula, our elected officials, and city leadership, and to our community partners, and to all of you who are standing here today as we raise this pride flag above City Hall. I want to specifically thank Aneesah Smith, who has worked tirelessly to help make this moment possible, and for all she is doing to help make Richmond a more welcoming and inclusive space for LGBTQ people. As Aneesah said, this year's theme is Pride is a Practice. I think that phrase asks something important of all of us, because Pride is not simply a celebration that we attend once a year. It's not a company changing its logo for Pride Month, or a proclamation, or a flag alone. Pride is the daily practice of choosing visibility over silence, inclusion over exclusion, and courage over complacency. It is the practice of creating spaces where people feel safe enough to be fully themselves. It is the practice of standing up for one another, especially when it's hard. And it is the practice of building a city and a community where LGBTQ people are not just welcomed, but they are valued, they are protected, and able to thrive. This practice takes many forms. Yes, people know about Pride Fest for the joy and the music and the celebration and the tens of thousands of people who gather together every year. But the work of Diversity Richmond and Virginia Pride, and so many of our community partners represented here today, goes far beyond any single event. It is found in the support groups, the advocacy work, the affirming healthcare providers, the recovery spaces, the youth programs, the faith communities, the artists, the educators, and the countless members of our community who show up every day to make this city feel more connected, more compassionate, and more inclusive. But none of this happens alone. Progress happens because communities come together. It happens because organizations collaborate instead of compete. It happens because people decide that creating a sense of belonging is worth the effort. Today, I want to recognize the city of Richmond for its continued efforts to move beyond performative gestures and toward meaningful action that improves the lives of its LGBTQ residents. From investing in equity and inclusion initiatives, to listening more intentionally to community voices, to creating spaces for dialogue, visibility, and representation. Those actions matter. Are we finished? No. Is there still work to do? Absolutely. And sometimes that work feels really difficult. Even something as simple as raising a pride flag can draw anger, hostility, and attempts to diminish the humanity of LGBTQ people. We see it online. Don't read the comments. Hear it in public discourse. And for many people in our community, those messages carry real weight. But pride is a practice precisely because visibility still matters, community still matters, and the choice to continue showing up for one another openly, joyfully, and without apology still matters. What defines Richmond is not the loudness of those who seek to divide us. It is the thousands of residents, organizations, businesses, faith leaders, advocates, and neighbors who continue choosing inclusion, compassion, and belonging every single day. That is what makes this community stronger. That is what makes this city stronger. And progress is built through practice, through consistency, through the willingness to keep moving forward together. Because this flag does not simply represent identity, it represents community, it represents resilience, it represents people who refuse to disappear even when the world said they should. And when this flag raises above City Hall today, let it serve not only as a symbol of celebration, but as a reminder of our responsibility to continue practicing inclusion, practicing compassion, and practicing the kind of courage that creates lasting change. Thank you for being a part of that practice, and happy Pride.
And next, it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome the Reverend Dr. Lacette Cross, the Executive Director of Diversity Richmond.
Happy Pride, y'all. First, I want to say thank you to the city, to Mayor Avula, to the administration, and I want to shout out to Amy. We did good in hiring Aneesah Smith. So glad for her to be here. And then my one last point of privilege is that it is indeed my joy and pleasure to have served as the first Black Executive Director of Diversity Richmond. But more importantly, I am so excited for the organization's future, and I'm sure you will get a chance to meet the next phenomenal Black queer woman to lead Diversity Richmond, Tiara Craig. Clap it up for her wherever she may be, and your opportunity to welcome her warmly into this community. Amen. Hey, there she go. How you doing? Okay, let me do what I was told to do. Hey. Pride in practice is about the everydayness of living. The womanist ethicist, Reverend Dr. Emily Towns, is a Black queer scholar most notable for being the first Black woman to serve as Dean of Vanderbilt Divinity School. She writes and speaks about the everydayness of the moral, just acts that shape us beyond grand, symbolic, public-facing moments like this. The everydayness of listening closely, the everydayness of being a presence in people's lives, of getting up and trying one more time to get our living right. I want to borrow her wisdom today and bring it home to this city, to this community, to the people that link arms and do this work. to this group of people that I humbly serve and I love deeply. Because pride in practice is every day. It's waking up, looking in the mirror, and being proud of the person staring back, no matter who, she, he, they, you are. It's the everydayness of saying to your neighbor, you are welcome here, and then being mindful of how we show that in the ways we actually treat each other. It's the everydayness of meaning that you are celebrated here by lifting up the amazing fabulousness of every single person, regardless of titles, positions, or perceived influence or power. It's the everydayness of living, you are loved here through loving actions in the tradition of bell hooks, the kind of love that embodies care and affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust. It's the everydayness of limiting beliefs, fears, and shame we all carry and choose to overcome so we can show up fully for this community. It's the everydayness of conflict that naturally arises when you are doing good work with good people that is also hard and choosing to stay in the room anyway. It is the everydayness of conflict. It is the everydayness of seeing things differently without becoming disagreeable, because difference is not division unless we make it. It's the everydayness of the kikis and the spilled tea, the joy and the pain, the silence and the reflection, the anger and the unmitigated goal to be audacious and say, I am here, I am queer, and you got to deal with it. It is the everydayness of celebrating our success, of creating events and experiences that meet people exactly where they are. Beloveds, it is the everydayness of turning to your neighbor and saying, let's meet, let's plan, let's work this thing out together, because our mission and our resolve to do all that we can with all that we have, because this is what actualizes pride in practice. And so, beloveds, in the words of Glorilla, at the end of the day gotta end. But pride will always and forever be part of who we are, what we do, and how we leave our mark in this world. This is pride in practice. Now let's go practice.
Well, I don't know about y'all, but the little church girl in me says amen, amen, and amen. The next speaker is an absolutely joy to be his colleague and now dear friend. I would like to welcome Mr. Qing and Imzadi on behalf of us, Giving Richmond Connections and Black Pride RVA.
Hello, Richmond. I said hello, Richmond. Okay. The hardest thing I'm going to do in 2026 is following Reverend Dr. Lacette Cross. So, hold on to your wigs. We're going to get through this together, okay? I want to start by first sharing my immense gratitude, not just to be here in company with so many amazing people, to be here raising this flag at City Hall, but just to be a member of the Richmond community. I get to wake up as myself. I get to put on my drag face when it's time for that. I get to come into conversations that advance queer communities every day, and I do not dismiss that as the greatest honor of my life. I will share with you that sometimes, as I am weaving in between these roles that I play throughout this city, I get a little nervous. But that's okay. Sometimes before pressing submit on a grant submission or before speaking to you, before you today. But one of the things that I do to ground myself is that I take a deep, slow breath and I ask one of my ancestors, somebody that I call my fairy granddad, for a small cup of courage. I call on Stormy DeLavier. It's not a big thing. It's a slow inhale, just a reminder that I am here and that somebody in my body was successful before me. I don't do this to idolize Stormy DeLavier or the life that they live or to take away their humanity. I do it because they gave us a beautiful example of what it means to be both determined and afraid at the same time, but still choose to do the brave thing. History shows us that one brave act can snowball into a rebellion, and pride was nothing but a rebellion in the beginning. We often hear this saying that practice makes perfect, But life teaches us that that is not always true, because if it was true, none of us would ever trip and fall. None of us would ever have to start again. But I do believe that pride creates progress, and it makes progress possible. Organizations here in Richmond like UGRC, Us Giving Richmond Connections, Black Pride RVA, are working to deepen that practice on an everyday basis. Because at the end of the day, practice creates capacity. Practice teaches us how to communicate, how to repair, how to ask better questions, how to create room for growth. Pride is one of those practices. It is an ongoing civic cultural practice. It is the naming and defining of ourselves. It is the practice of protecting both our older and our younger people. It is the practice of standing with those who are most deeply affected under the rainbow. It is the practice of telling the truth about our history, even when it is painful or even when it is inconvenient. Today, as we celebrate the raising of this flag, let us not be just a symbol, but a reminder of that ongoing practice and our commitment to that practice. My hope for this city is that we continue to be able to lean into that practice, and we continue to be able to utilize not only ourselves and our neighbors as tools for change, but also utilizing organizations like UGRC Black Pride, like Diversity Richmond, like Virginia Pride, and so many others that are doing this work on a daily basis so that we can be a better Richmond tomorrow than we are today. My invitation for you today is that you make room for this space for reflection. You make room to recognize that you are a part of living history, and you make room for reflection for gratitude. Happy Pride, Richmond. We made it to another Pride.
Thank you, Qing. The next speaker is a queen in her own essence, but has so much wisdom and history within her. I am learning so much from her every day. It is my pleasure to welcome Ms. Zakia McKensey, the Executive Director of Nationz Foundation.
Good morning and happy Pride. As Aneesah said, I am Zakia McKensey. I am the Executive Director and founder of Nationz Foundation. And first, I would like to thank Mayor Avula and the City of Richmond for recognizing Pride Month and continuing with the annual Pride flag raising. As a Richmond native and a woman of trans experience, this simple action of raising the Pride flag makes me feel seen, safe, and welcomed in the city. This is especially important during a time where we are seeing our current White House administration trying to vilify our community, strip away the basic rights afforded all U.S. citizens by the Constitution, and sending a clear message that trans people are not worthy of health care, basic accommodations, and the right to exist and be respected. The theme, Pride in Practice, is such a profound statement. Regardless of your sexual orientation or gender identity, Pride in Practice reinforces in me that we are all equal. We all deserve to be respected and should feel safe. Pride in Practice is the essence of creating safe and affirming communities, welcoming to all who not only live in the capital city, but for those who visit as well. Pride Month stems from the radical movements of Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, and Miss Major Griffin Gracie, trans women who were sick and tired of abuse, discrimination, and the community being ostracized because of how they identified and who they loved. This month is even more important due to the increasing narrative of hate that spew toward the community who solely wants to live, exist, and love. It is my hope that as we move forward in this continued fight for equality, that individuals will be more accepting, demonstrate a larger sense of community, create spaces that are both welcoming and safe. It really saddens my heart that as a community we have come so far, yet this administration is trying to take us back and has created a landscape of openly being hateful, transphobic, and homophobic. We're not going back, and like my trans sisters before me, we will be vigilant, we will fight for our rightful place in society. Happy Pride.
Thank you, Zakia. My next speaker, I am very proud, When I thought about what I wanted this moment to look like, I knew I wanted to have a youth voice, and it wasn't easy. It takes a lot of pride to get up here and speak. So on behalf of Side by Side, I'd like to welcome our youth speaker for this year, Sawyer.
What does it mean to be part of a community? What does it mean to be surrounded by people who see you for who you are? What does it mean to show pride as a practice? Hi, my name is Sawyer Gans, and I spent most of my life trying to answer those questions. As a queer person, I didn't really feel like I had a space where I could truly call myself part of the community. I go to Side by Side every week on Wednesday from 6 to 7:30. We talk, we eat, we share stories. It's something I look forward to. I don't have the easiest time making connections, but I know that the people there would listen to me, help me through whatever I was going through. I know that these are people who care about me. Even if we don't have an understanding, we work to build one and make sure everyone is safe and comfortable, because we all deserve a space that makes us feel that way. I feel like everyone wants a third space, that perfect place between school or work where you don't have to spend money. You can just be with your friends. It doesn't seem plausible to have a place like that, but it has been my reality throughout my time at Side by Side. People, especially queer people, need to be there for each other more than ever right now. It is so important for queer youth to feel seen, even in ways as small as having people show up every week on Wednesday from 6 to 7:30 and listen. Having your needs be respected and considered is part of what showing pride as a practice means. Not just this month, not just when it's visible, but always. Everyone's speech was longer than mine. I feel unprepared.
So good. So good. I also knew that in order to bring the impact, we had to bring the art. And so when I reached out to my contacts, I was told that this amazing artist would bring it. So I would love to welcome a spoken word selection from Sunflower Mo.
First of all, happy Pride. Thank you, Richmond. Thank you, Mayor Avula, for putting this on. It is so important. Before I get into the poem, I want to also answer the question as far as pride as a practice. For me, that means that it is more about celebrating. It's more than that. It's more about wearing rainbow colors or wearing our flags, right? And having fun. It's really about bringing light to the issues that we face. And a big thing that I talk about is queer domestic violence. It doesn't get enough coverage. We don't have shelters designated for queer people or resources. And so this poem is called In Between the Margins, because often queer people are forgotten about, like we're not there. I keep seeing battered women in headlines, basking in the broken bones of their stories, taking in the tales of their tattered tomorrows, while the media keeps covering the carnage. Can't turn the news on without seeing a dropped body. It's sad that a woman cannot be herself and be queer and be supported. It's crazy how when lesbians fight, it's always labeled passionate, perceived a game, like pain don't feel the same when a rainbow's attached to it. Like a war ain't a war if misogyny ain't the first order of business. And I guess that's just like America, deciding who can and cannot become a casualty. And I wish that we didn't look at this so casually, because if there ain't a man around to blame, then who else do we hold accountable? I hate how the fists that blackened my eyes, knew that being a woman would shield her from being called a storm, shadow her from being deemed a threat, as if having the ability to give life exempts you from taking one, like breasts will keep a killer from performing an execution, like a womb ain't enough fuel to turn love into a landmine, like a villain can't be a villain if she wears heels to the slaughter, like it doesn't even matter that I'm a punching bag when the body doing the bruising ain't built like a man, when the 1 in 4 statistic doesn't cover gay relationships, because who cares about 2 women who chose to sin like this? Treating my sexuality as a choice, using who I love as a reason not to protect me from them. And I know that this ain't why rules were made, because our kind ain't never been the people they create laws for, only caskets that will keep us from sharing our stories. And y'all, we gotta keep sharing our stories. We have to keep talking about it. It is important. Not only do they erase queer people as people, but they erase the things that we go through. They feel like if 2 men are fighting, or 2 lesbians, or 2 AFAB or AMAT people are in dispute, that it's like normal. They look over it because we're of the same gender, or of the same sex, or identify the same. And it's a problem, and we need to talk about it more. So if anybody needs resources, please reach out to me. I have them. Thank you.
Woo! And so the support that I have for not only this position, but for the work I get the privilege of doing every single day comes from the amazing leader of this city. I would like to welcome up Mayor Danny Avula and Councilor Kenya Gibson.
Well, happy Pride, friends. It is a joy to celebrate with you all today. Man, this has been so inspiring. I mean, I think about my first year in office, and without a doubt, the flag raising we did for this was one of the absolute highlights. One of those moments where, you just take in, like, I get to serve and live and be a part of an incredible community of people who live with boldness and courage and love. And as a father of a queer daughter, like, I am so thankful that she gets to grow up in a community like this. I will just say a few things about what the city is going to continue to do. I think you've heard so many words about how this is not just a moment or a symbol, but it really is a commitment to ongoing action. And so I want to share a little bit about what your city is doing. We are so proud to continue creating spaces where LGBTQ residents are seen and valued and connected. And just today, right after this, will be another example of that, right? We're going to have our flag raising here, and then we're going to go upstairs and we're going to gather for the collective table, a Pride and Belonging brunch, where we will have and foster conversations that are really focused on what it feels like to be part of the LGBTQ community and to be part of this more broader community, what it means to support our LGBTQ community beyond just symbolic moments like this, but to do that every day in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, in our institutions, in our art spaces. And we know that work happens through consistent action, through partnership, and through listening. And so here, again, another opportunity to do that and to celebrate that. So what has changed from last year to this year? First of all, the Office of Equity is back up and running. You all have heard from Aneesah. She is amazing. I'm so thankful that she accepted our offer to come down here from Philadelphia and has just done so much work to reconnect City Hall to this incredible community. A lot of her role is really about strengthening those relationships with our LGBTQ community, our residents, to bridge gaps between the community and local government, to improve access to city resources. And so there's still, you all know, there's so much work that needs to continue to be done there, and we will continue to do that. I mentioned listening. One of the ways we do that is actually by soliciting community input. And so we launched our first ever community survey targeted at the lived experience of LGBTQ residents. And so that has gone out. Great work, Aneesah and team. That is, the point there is to just make sure that we are understanding what our LGBTQ community experiences, what they're perceiving in terms of safety and belonging, and that we are going to be using that input to help inform what our strategies, our policies, our investment, our engagement, what that looks like. And then through our Office of Equity Inclusion, we've also focused on expanding our collaboration with all of these different community organizations through intentional convenings. I've gotten to be a part of some of those. They've been really joyful moments. We are curating dialogue with not just OEI, but the connection to all of the other city offices to make sure that they are hearing that input and that they are shifting practices and making the way that they deliver services more inclusive and more supportive. And so, so much work to be done. We are so excited about the future. We're so excited about Aneesah's leadership and getting to be embedded in this incredible community of leaders. And so I just want to thank all of you for coming out today, for celebrating this, for loving our city, for caring about these issues, and for being willing to be a part of this movement as we continue moving forward. You all hopefully have heard the good news that a few months ago we received yet another 100% rating on our Municipal Equality Index. That's the 8th year in a row. And that doesn't mean the work is done. As you've heard from so many people here, that work will continue. Know that I'm committed to it. Know that my incredible partners on council are committed to it. And so I'd like to invite Councilmember Gibson up to share the proclamation that we are doing to honor Pride Month. Thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Kenya Gibson. My pronouns are she, her, and I proudly represent Richmond's North Side. It is an honor to be with you today. When we talk about the history of fighting for civil rights, whether it's for LGBTQ, women, or Black Americans, we're talking about movements led by ordinary people who simultaneously carried both fear and audacious hope. And as it turns out, fear and hope is a powerful combination because it creates determination. So despite all the odds, ordinary people change the world. These stories are incredible because progress was built by communities who were just as proud as we are here today, but existed almost entirely underground. And all it took was a few individuals within those communities who inspired others to believe a new future was possible by working together. And together, the fearful were fearless. They organized. And we call it organizing because it starts small, in backyards and basements, through handmade flyers and fierce word of mouth. There was no Instagram, no viral posts. They couldn't risk that kind of visibility then. But yet, here we are today. This is a reminder of the power communities have when we gather together with purpose. So Pride will always be both a celebration and a call to action. And there is still work to do. We still need to protect the freedoms that generations before us fought to secure. And I am so proud of the work of our General Assembly to give Virginians the opportunity to amend our Constitution to protect fundamental rights, marriage rights, reproductive freedom, voting rights. Those protections matter. Pride reminds us that progress is possible, and we will continue to transform fear into action. So we'll organize, we'll celebrate to keep spreading hope, and we'll get our neighbors to the polls. Happy Pride, Richmond.
All right, so we're not going to read this very long and very extensive proclamation, but I think I just want you all to know that this is important enough that we want to codify it, right? In a proclamation. Yeah, I'll read the last paragraph. So therefore, Mayor Danny Avula and the Richmond City Council recognize, honor, and celebrate Richmond as a Richmond LGBTQ plus friendly community and a safe place for our LGBTQ plus people to live their lives freely, openly, authentically, and protected from harm, and to bring this to the attention of Richmond residents and visitors in honoring our thriving, inclusive community.
All right, so 2 more parts of our program, but we're at the most amazing part when our mayor and city will raise our flag. Woo!